Hello, my Jedi friends. In today's episode, I ask you the question, have you been programmed for an unhappy life? Have you been programmed? Was your brain programmed that way? Were you destined to be unhappy? So let's dive into here. Let's dive into here. So, firstly, let's talk about something called the negativity bias, which is a phenomenon that you can look up. You can look it up for yourself. And what you'll find is that the studies of human nature, of human beings, of human behavior show that we're three times more charged by a negative than we are by a positive, which means that people could shower you with compliments and then somebody say, but you're a bit of an arse. And you've just forgotten all the compliments. And you're like, did you hear what they called me? They called me an arse. And that is the thing that will fire you up. Ask yourself the things that really get you fired up. And the odds are you're not there saying, yes, this person, they said I was really positive. They said I'm brilliant. How often do you get charged up by that? Versus if somebody slights you, if somebody does something bad to you, how does that fire you up? You only need to reflect on the things that have really charged you to realize that this is true. That as a society, we're all programmed more towards negatives and positives. And if you don't believe that, let me ask you this question. When was the last time you tuned into the news and you remember listening to a positive news story? Tumbleweed, my Jedi friends, tumbleweed. Why is it tumbleweed? Because good news doesn't sell. You're far more likely. Let me ask you the question. You see all these headlines. One of them is, good news happens or community gathers and everyone's happy. People have a great time in this gathering, or somebody goes around punching everybody and kicks off at a party. Which headline are you drawn towards? Do you want to see peace and love, or do you want to see who's this arsehole that's gone around beating people up at the party? It's just one example. The bottom line is that the news media knows that bad news sells. In fact, I used to go to a body, mind, and spirit festival years and years ago and see this publication called Positive News that was all about just bringing positive news to people. And I believe that they went bankrupt because not enough people wanted to hear it. That's the reality of the situation, my Jedi friends, is that people are far more likely to draw their attention towards negatives and positives. It's even the way that when I put this thumbnail together, it says, have you been programmed to unhappiness? Because the stats show that if I say, have you been programmed to happiness, that hardly anyone's going to click on it. Maybe hardly anyone's going to click on this anyway, because my channel has been shadow banned on a few occasions for my wanton use of profanity. But that's another question. That's another conversation for another day. That is another conversation for another day, my Jedi friends. Sometimes you have to learn that the algorithm doesn't love you. And you have to realize that that is just the way that the world, it's the way of the world. If you're going to speak your mind, you're going to have to pay the price. Speak your mind, pay the price, my Jedi friends. Fortunately, I'm at a time of life where I'm happy to pay whatever price it is to speak my mind. We'll speak my mind today. So let's look at neurolinguistic programming, which is the study of the human brain, and it's something that I'm trained in. So it's a very interesting study, and I've talked about bits of this, but the main premise of neurolinguistics is that there's no such thing. The human brain cannot process a negative, which means that whatever you say to it has to process. You can't say to someone, don't think of a glass table right now. Whatever you think of, don't think of a glass table. Just don't do it. Now, what do you have to think of in order to not think of it? And this is where neurolinguistics begins. It looks at the human brain, how it works, what we react to. And not only that, we've talked on this channel about family programming, how we heal our parents from a young age and we take on board a lot of their bullshit. And you can spend a whole lifetime either coming to terms with that and dealing with it or passing it on to the next generation. And there lieth the ancestral domino effect, which is another topic that I've talked at length on this channel about, so I'm not going to address it now. But the point being that bad behavior gets programmed into us at a young age, and also good behavior. But unfortunately, there's not so much of that doing the rounds at the moment, my Jedi friends. Where are all those good behaviors that you could have programmed in? And usually, with good behaviors come negative side effects. Every positive has a negative polarity. So, whether something's negative or positive really depends on the longevity of the way that you're looking at it. So let's bring this alive. So one of the hardest things that people go through is something like divorce, for example. Now, when you go through a divorce, you feel like the world's about to end. You feel like the whole system's collapsing on you. Your world's falling apart. But once you're through the other side of a divorce, maybe you're in another relationship, you can then look back and say the divorce was the best thing that happened to me. But when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel that way. And no one's going to convince you, and no amount of people saying it's for the best, or you'll be all right, or you'll find someone else, it doesn't make any difference when you're in the storm. When you're in the eye of the storm, my Jedi friends, all you can see is the doom and gloom. And that's the human brain when we get caught in these situations. Now, tough things may happen to us that are going to be for the best in the long term, but it's difficult to process that when you're in it. Which is why, if you are going through tough times, they're usually quite necessary. And one of the things that we talk about, I mentor people through difficult times working with energy. And this is one of the things that people have to wake up to. Being energized, working with energy, self-development, personal development, waking up is usually for most, and I don't want to make absolute universal terms here, but for most people, it's absolutely brutal and excruciating, because the wake up process usually means big change. It usually means complete disruption in your life. It means waking up to abusive relationships, narcissistic relationships, and getting them out of your life. And if you've ever been in a relationship, any sort of relationship with a narcissist, you'll realize that's way easier said than done, and comes with numerous complexities for an empath or a healer or a light worker or a good person. Call it what you will. Someone with high empathy will normally suffer going through that sort of separation. And all of this is programming to be good, to be good, to be good, to be good. Don't rock the boat. There were a lot of beliefs that went around when I was a kid that was almost universal amongst all my friends, that children should be seen and not heard, that don't rock the boat, don't question your elders, respect your elders. Respect your elders. Now, there's something, isn't it? As I grew up, that was an absolute mantra. In this day and age, it seems to be the complete opposite. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be. Because there's a very fine line between giving a good amount of respect to someone that's got more life experience to you, or listening or giving them license to abuse you because of their age and they think they've got the entitlement to do so. So there's nuance within all of this, my Jedi friends. There's no right or way. There's no good or bad here. There's only the middle way, and that's the way that you find yourself on, of waking up, of realizing that you may have been programmed to negative things, that a lot of the energy that we take on, working with energy is like a magnet. Now, if you haven't learned, and this is really important, to clear your energy. Now, if I'm saying, do you know to clear your energy, and you've got any sort of doubt as to what that means, then it means you probably haven't, which means that you've taken on board energy from everybody else that you've spent time with. And quite often, people are functioning with less than 3% of their own true essence energy, which is why you're so confused, which is why you're so clouded, which is why the world doesn't make sense a lot of times, which is why you feel a lack of alignment, because we're energetic beings. And through being with other people, if you don't learn to clear your energy or to set your energy, you attract other people's energy. Now, I've talked about this on numerous videos, but the very quick litmus test for this, if you don't believe me, is when you spend time with someone that's in a low energy space. Maybe it's someone that you're working with, maybe it's a friend who's down and they dump all their problems on you. And at the end of it, they say, "Thank you for listening. I feel so much better now. I feel so much better now. You're so wonderful." And yet you feel absolutely drained, drained. You feel that the empath in you is glad that you've done a service, but what you've actually done is taken on board some of their energy. Now, what you think has happened verbally is a completely separate conversation. But energetically, you've accepted some of their low energy and you've taken it on board. And here's the worst thing, my Jedi friends. If you spend a lifetime doing that and not clearing your energy, the odds are that that dense energy that you've taken on from other people will manifest into weight gain. That's a tumbleweed moment. That's almost a mic drop because a lot of the best people I know, a lot of the biggest healers, a lot of the empaths are overweight. They're overweight because they haven't learned to properly clear their energy. And after a lifetime of taking on board other people's energy, it can be really heavy duty. Because you're taking on board all this low energy, it's going to affect your energy, which is going to affect your ability to do things like exercise, your motivation to even go out walking, to do base level things, which will eventually accumulate into extra weight. It's a subtle process, my Jedi friends. But part of you knows, as I'm telling you this, that this is real. This is real because you weren't always overweight. There was a time where you had more energy, you had more motivation, but then you took on board all of this dense energy and suddenly you don't feel it anymore. Programming, my Jedi friends, programming. So there's a lot of messed up programming that we take on board, and all of this can be dealt with energetically, or a lot of it can. So it's not just a woo-woo art. When you work with energy, you learn to clear your energy. You learn to increase your happiness. You learn to increase your motivation. You learn to treat yourself better. You learn to set healthy boundaries. You learn to be able to listen to that friend that's got all sorts of stuff going on and not feel shit at the end of it because you've learned how to offset energy without taking it on board. And these are just some of the principles that working with energy can absolutely change your life. Change your life. But it happens subtly. Happens subtly. If you use energy more often, it will have more profound impact. If you use it on a one-off basis, once every now and again, it probably won't. And most people that tell me that if their experience with energy, they've had one or two sessions and they say, well, it didn't make much difference. It's the same as showering, my Jedi friends. If you only do it once or twice in your life, you're still going to stink. And if you're going to blame the shower for that not working, then that's madness as well. It's not the shower that doesn't work, it's your capacity to use it. And it's exactly the same with energy. And if you're watching this and you really want to understand how energy works and you want the best value that you'll ever get in your life, then look in the description of this video, look up Jedi Training Academy, have a look at that, get on that program. And it's the only energy course I know of that guarantees the result. Guarantees the result. People are told don't guarantee the result. I guarantee it. Guarantee that you'll get positive change through learning how energy works. Because once you learn these techniques, life is so much simpler. That you have the tools to take control of your own energy and your own life and just to feel better with simple steps to get yourself out of those dark places. And that's what energy is, my friends. And that's how you program your brain. You program your brain to use energy so you're not taking on board other people's energy and that you are able to offset it to feel more of your own core essence energy and stop taking on board the dense energy of other people around you, which is causing your health issues. All of it interrelates, my Jedi friends, and I help you to understand that. And if you want to understand more of it, then there's plenty of resources on this channel to go around and find it yourself. And I encourage you, do subscribe to the channel. You will find all the answers in the videos here. Or if you're more specific and you want mentoring and you haven't got time to mess about and you want straight, more direct route, then get in touch with me on the Jedi Training Academy or the contact details on this video. And if you want another from one of my videos, you will find it just there, my friends. But either way, you found this video for a reason, and it may be time for you to take control of your energy, your motivation, and your life.